Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to Season 2, Week 43 of the DC Sports Digest. Pretty interesting week in DC Sports, a lot of news to cover, so without further ado, let's just get into it. Starting with the Nationals, they won the Giants series, lost the Royals series, and split the first two games of the Phillies series, is what I forgot to add there. Mackenzie Gore actually had two pretty good starts this week. He had a bounce back game in win versus the Giants and a good game versus the Phillies. I think it was found out that he was potentially tipping pitches, so that caused some bad starts, and now he's looking a lot better, which is great to see. Dylan Cruz rejoins the Nats finally after a long rehab process, which is great to see. As Dylan Cruz rejoins the Nats, there's another polarizing move made as Nathaniel Lowe was designated for assignment. It honestly might be a good move because he hasn't been playing that well, but it also could be a potential move that ownership kind of forced as he was making the most amount of money on the team at like 10 million. But if they really did that just to save some money, it's such a cheapo move because this ownership group is already so cheap, and then DFAing your most expensive player just because he's making too much money and not doing good enough. Well, in one way it makes sense. It also could be a move that the ownership forced new GM Mike DeBartolo to do. So we'll see what happens. I also think we could have just traded him and actually gotten at least a little bit of value from that if we were just going to DFA him right after. But obviously that didn't happen. So we'll see if he gets claimed anywhere else. I haven't looked around too much, so I'm not sure if he's gone anywhere else yet or if he cleared waivers or whatever. But I'll let you know if I hear anything else about that. And that's all I have for that. We also were officially eliminated from the playoffs. Pretty obvious we weren't making it, but it's now official. 49-73 record is really bad. Not the type of season we were expecting to have. We are the second worst team in the NL and third worst team in the whole league. So that's just really unfortunate. But coming up this week with the Phillies series finishing, maybe we can salvage a win there. And the Mets series, and then another series with the Phillies. So a lot of divisional matchups this week. That's all I have for the Nats. On to the Wizards, not really too much going on. Tristan Vucevic is another player who is playing in Eurobasket. He's been playing pretty well as well, just as well as Sar and Bilal Coulibaly. The other big news was the schedule was released. Their first game is October 22nd versus the Milwaukee Bucks. I think we only have two primetime nationally televised games this week this year. I think one is on Prime and one is on Peacock, so not totally nationally televised, and that's about as much as I expected this year. So yeah, that's really all I have for the Wizards. Nothing for the Caps. Nick Backstrom has had a good start in preseason with his new Swedish team. Starting with onto the Commanders now, we have some recent news from this morning that Terry McLaurin is activated off the physically unable to perform list. While it may not mean an extension is coming soon, or extension is coming, I think it may further the process a little bit. So basically, he was just working with the trainers, being mostly a spectator to practice in his hold-in. So now the hold-in is basically over. He's being told basically to come to practice and actually practice so he can, start ramping up for the season. The season starts in like 3 weeks, so he needs to kind of start ramping things up. And I think this is a good sign. I think, well, it's not correlated to the extension. I think it helps the extension. It means Terry has less and less leverage, and they're going to hopefully go down and hopefully budge because I've heard a lot of things this week about Adam Peters. How he has an edge to his negotiating, and he doesn't budge. So I think it's really up to the player to budge, up to the player and their agent to budge, and eventually go a little lower than they're asking. And both parties may not be happy with this extension, but if they can come to an agreement in the next couple weeks, I'd be really happy. So this doesn't necessarily mean an extension is coming soon, but I think it's a marker that Terry and his agent have less and less leverage. And I think an extension will come soon, the next week or two, I'm expecting. So like I said, I'll let you guys know when I hear more, but I did have an update this week. Now on to some other smaller things. One of our new signings, Lucas Niang, tears his ACL, so he's out for the season. So that's really unfortunate. We had a lot of tryouts this week. Obviously, no preseason game this week. We had a lot of practice and we had a lot of tryouts. And we ended up signing linebacker Duke Riley, and then DBs Ed St. Bassie, Antonio Hamilton, Darryl Worley, and then we signed wide receiver River Craycraft, releasing Michael Strachan. We're still looking for that sixth wide receiver, and honestly, there's a good chance that we don't find that sixth wide receiver until after roster cuts and we look at a waiver wire guy. But they also may end up going with five and keeping some guys in the practice squad. Because our five will be Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, Debo Samuel, Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane. Those are our 5 locked in. We may want to look for a 6th. We may look like on the waiver wire after roster cuts, like I said. We may take someone in-house like Ja'Cory Brooks, because some of these guys are just our 6th wide receiver spot have been pretty uninspiring, but also it's their 6th wide receiver spot. It's not the biggest of deals. So we'll see what happens with that. A couple other guys are released, but the most notable one is 5th round pick from 2024, Dominique Hampton was released. Really unfortunate he didn't really pan out. He did not look good in the preseason, and it's just like Dan Quaid said this. It's easier to do this earlier rather than later. So he pulled the plug. He and Adam Peters pulled the plug and released Dominique Hampton. So I wish him best of luck in another situation, and I think that's why they've said it earlier rather than later, because it'll be easier for him to hopefully get into a better situation and maybe turn his career around. So I wish the best of luck to Dominique Hampton. The Commanders also had a scrimmage this week with Team Gold winning. They kind of had like a color war almost and split up the team. So that was cool to see. Got some different coaches calling plays. And we were supposed to have joint practice with the Ravens this week, but it's canceled because we were going to have a preseason game Monday and then joint practice Wednesday and then our final preseason game with the Ravens on Saturday. So that was way too busy for us. So that was canceled, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll get it next year. Always great to match up against a team like the Ravens in a joint practice. And coming up this week of the preseason on Monday versus the Bengals, we are expecting to see a lot of starters. I think I saw something that Jaden Daniels will be playing a little bit, so that will be great to see. This is the week 2 of the preseason, is now the dress rehearsal with only 3 weeks in the preseason, so expect to see a lot of starters. I would definitely turn this one on early. It'd be really exciting to see us against the Bengals. I'm also excited to see the defense, see how they can match up against one of the best offenses in the league. The Bengals are playing their starters, as like I said last week, they're trying to get to a fast start. So it'll be an interesting game. I'm really excited just to see Jaden Daniels and see us again before the season. Then we'll have more practice, and then obviously next week we'll have our last preseason versus the Ravens. But I'll talk about that next week, and I'll talk about any more updates with Terry McLaurin and any other stuff next week for the Commanders. So that's all I have for them. Other DC sports news: DC United lost to New England. They are still not looking that great. They have a game today against Montreal. Washington Spirit had 2 games this week. They tied both New York and Louisville. Their next game is in a tournament with the CONCACAF Women's Champions Cup versus Alianza. I never heard of them. So we'll see how that goes on Tuesday. The Mystics beat the Wings and the Fever, losing to the Valkyries, getting to a 15-18 record. Congrats to Kiki Air fans, setting the franchise rookie rebound record. That's great to see. And games this week against the Sparks and 2 games against the Sun this week. On my weekly awards, I'm giving it to the Nats beating the Giants 8-0. Obviously a pretty dominant performance, so that's always great to see. My play of the week is Mackenzie Gore. 2 strong bounce-back outings after bad start after the All-Star break. And my team week's the Mystics with the 2-1 record. And that's all I have this week, so thanks for watching. Check out the Instagram and make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.